obviously disappointed again with what occurred on Saturday. By any way, shape, or form, it wasn't good enough performance, and that's on me. Like I said, I accepted the responsibility in the locker room post game and the press conference, and still feel like I should have put our guys in a better position to have successful versus a great Navy team. Clearly, they've improved significantly on offense and some of the stuff they're able to do with their triple option. Their quarterback did a fantastic job. We counted 19 missed tackles. So any game, I don't care who you're playing, with 19 missed tackles, you're not going to give yourself much of a chance. We had put together a better game plan, and that's all me. But look, our guys, there was no hangover from the previous week's victory, right? We went out there the opening drive, 9-play drive, scored a touchdown, went 3 and out. The problem was the following offensive drive wasn't successful. In fact, it was bad football, and then defensively, we had a lot of errors and things that we got to clean up. But we learned from it, and just like the previous weeks, okay, hey, learn from it, good or bad. All right, and refocus on the next opponent, and that's what we're excited about, is to be back home in front of our great fans. 6:30 this Saturday night on ESPNU, but we need our fans to show up. They've done a tremendous job all year, but we're going to need them to continue to show up and show out, and versus a good MTSU team. Derek Mason is an old friend of mine. In fact, long story, him and I actually shared an office together with the Vikings, so Derek and I go way back. And I was in the office with him when Jim Harbaugh called him and offered him a job with Stanford. He put down the phone and asked me. We talked about it, and Derek and I go way back. In fact, he visited me when I was in Detroit and tried to convince me to go to the other part of the state of Tennessee to work with him at Vanderbilt. And I decided to come here to Memphis, and the rest is history. So Derek and I go way back. Brad Salem actually played ball at Northern Arizona with Derek, so quite a bit of history there. But excited for that matchup. It's always good to be able to play a team in state. Their quarterback is a returning starter who's got a strong arm, who does a lot of good things. Wide receiver number 1 is one of the best wide receivers we've seen on film, and their tight end number 83 poses a lot of issues and is a really good player. So they got weapons on offense, and then defensively they're playing a lot of different guys. Derek's imposing a bunch of different things of different schemes. You put on some different games, and you see different defensive schemes, and this past week another new one. Going back and looking at what he did at Stanford, all the way to Auburn, to Oklahoma State, and just to be prepared, because he's a defensive guru and he knows what he's doing. So it's going to cause some challenges. We've got to focus on ourselves and have a great week of preparation and practice. Our guys' mindset and approach is where it needs to be, and they're dialed in with the blinders on, ready to go 1-0 this week.
Is there any coaching staffs you don't have a connection to?
Yeah, most. It's you're in this thing long enough. It's Frank, when I first got here, even when I first got into coaching, I spent a third of my career here now at Memphis. And I started coaching when I was 18 years old. And it's funny because a lot of those guys coaching old D3 ball, Newberry was the one few connections that still from Division III, but a lot of those guys in the FCS and high school rankings are no longer in the profession. The profession will grind you out. It's tried to grind me out a few times and see the last man standing. But as you're in it over time, it's crazy to think that I've become one of the more veteran guys in this profession, and so the connections are to you got 130 Division I teams and then 32 NFL, so a lot of the recycling, a lot of different guys, but you do end up crossing paths with so many guys, and he's one obviously with Derek. Him and I had a great relationship. Guy I consider a close friend. Anybody that's ever offered me the opportunity to work for them in a job, I respect that as well. And I know he's working diligently to try to get MTSU back where he wants to.
Ryan, I know the loss is still fresh. In the interactions you've had with your guys in the last 48 hours, do you sense you have a pissed off team after Saturday?
Well, I told them in the locker room post-game we should be pissed. We should be frustrated. We should be humbled. All those things, absolutely. Matt, I think those are emotions and feelings you should have. And if you don't, something's wrong with you. And I don't want you a part of this program. I was obviously as disappointed and frustrated as anybody, and I looked in the mirror and said, what can I get better? But what I told our guys is, we bring them in on Sundays. I said, listen, when we leave the field after practice, you can learn from that game, but now it does us no good to sit there and pout and be frustrated and do those things. We've got to get our act together and get our mindset right and approach to have a better week of preparation. And I don't want a bunch of loser mentality around here. I said, guys, this is not a woe is me. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. In fact, most of the country's probably happy that you lost. And so take for what it's worth, but let's get back off the mat and come off swinging And I think our guys have taken that bit and believe in that, and that's what you want. You want guys that are pissed and not happy with their performance. And I told them all, I don't care if you played 80 snaps, 1 snap, no snaps, whatever, and it starts with me. We've all got to find a way to improve. And with that growth mindset and mentality, we'll find ways to persevere and get better. And that's the biggest thing, is going out there. Because it's no different, like I said, after the Florida State game, that's great. That game's over. You can't think about it anymore. Just no different than after the Navy game, that game's over. You can learn from it. But if we find ourselves looking in the rearview mirror in good times and bad, we're not going to see what's in front of us. So I'm very, very pleased with the guys' approach. But now, obviously, we're going to see how it looks at practice tomorrow.
When you went back and watched the film, other than missed tackles, what did you see that kind of went wrong, especially defensively?
Yeah, look, I want to give them credit where credit's due. They, coming off a bye, I think there's 22 plays that we hadn't seen in previous film. And that's no excuse. We've got to be prepared for everything. I mean, every team's going to come out and put together a better game plan. Like I said, I'll be the first to admit I probably didn't put our guys defensively in the right position to have success versus that offense. Schematically, those are the things. I think we got out leveraged on some things. We took some poor angles on some things that equate to some of the missed tackling. And I think it's a combination of being able to fit where you need to, right? And the biggest, Jonah, when you're playing those types of teams, one of our keys to be able to come out with a victory was to trust our eyes. And, you get caught up, you're looking at the fullback dive. Well, that's not your responsibility. You've got the quarterback. Well, then you look at the quarterback, but all of a sudden you see another guy coming across. But you got to trust your eyes. And I think our eyes weren't exactly where they needed to be. And that's one of those things, because you say, well, you're not going to see another offense like that. But teams are going to, still pull different elements of an opposing team, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, because that's what good coaches do, and then try to use them against their opponents. So our eyes got to be better. And all when it's all said and done, right, the tackling was the main thing, but a combination of us putting, and again, starting with me, not putting our guys in the right position to have success by the play call on the field.
Coach, there's the big challenge, obviously, going from the Florida State offense you faced to this version of the triple option, which is more like a wing tee and all that. Now going back to conventional, is there also a challenge of getting the guy's mindset that, okay, we're not playing this offense, we're playing this type of offense?
Yeah, Greg, I think that's this day and age in college football, right? I mean, I think we see so many different things nowadays, right? It's not, 30 years ago it was, hey, this is what teams are doing and this is what you get. And now these coaches have become so creative. You're seeing a wide variety of different things, of elements. And so, yeah, what I tell our guys, and no different than, offensively and special teams wise, every week's a whole new season. So it's like the old Men in Black. You still want to learn from all those things, right? You want to bank. You don't want to say, hey, guys, it's been a 3-year starter to forget everything you learned. Or a guy that, hey, we got hit on that 2 weeks ago versus Florida State. It could show up against MTSU. But it's the old, hit the erase button. Okay, refresh, reset, and go. And it's very unique, because one of the things in practice, we don't just go versus scouts. We'll do some crossover stuff. And literally sometimes in that crossover, it'll be, okay, Memphis offense is running Middle Tennessee's offense versus our defense, so they get a better look of the speed. So we will literally go up there and tell our offense, hey, you guys are running Middle Tennessee's offense off of cards or maybe a similar play call. Then we flip it around and we'll make sure that our defense understands, hey, you guys are facing Middle Tennessee right now. Then conversely, you go back and say, okay, hey, offense, now we are facing, even though Greg Rubin may be a starting safety for us, he's giving us the Middle Tennessee look. Hey, guys, you guys are facing Middle Tennessee's defense. And so you're constantly just trying to educate them and remind them of those things. But there's enough film study that they know that there's huge contrasts, especially in the offenses that we're facing.
With Seth, he's a senior, right? You got the last drive because of interception. How do you kind of get his mind back? Because, you see that drive, and everything's in front of you, and you have that happen. So how you getting him kind of ready for this?
Yeah, what I appreciate about Seth is he's played a lot of football. He's seen those things. He's had similar situations in the past. The quick thing I can think of is going back to the game at SMU a couple years ago. Very similar deal, probably within field goal range, and threw the interception in the back of it. The one thing about Seth is he'll be the first to say, hey, that's on me. And again, we're not putting it on him. What I appreciate about my staff too is Krams is like, no, that was my fault. Could have had a better play call, but ultimately it's me. And but Seth's the young man that sits there and says, Coach, I got to be better and I'll learn from it. And that's what the type of young man you want, the leader you want, a fourth-year quarterback that gets it. He's got a long-term memory, but a good short-term one. Hey, that's in the past. I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to go out there and be even better. And if anything, I know about the team in the locker room, especially a guy like Seth Hennigan, is he's going to come back and be even more improved. And very rarely have I seen the same mistake on a similar throw or concept ever beat him twice. So he'll improve like we all will, and looking forward to watching him continue to progress this year.
What's the latest on Elijah's status and also Rock and Kobe's?
Yeah, Elijah is still day to day. I believe he was out there for pregame warm-ups. And then Rock and Kobe are currently being evaluated. We'll get a good feel for how they are this week at practice. I don't think any of the three are long-term significant scares.
So you had shorter step up. In particular, you had even the freshman came in.
Brady Cluse.
Yeah. What's your confidence level in those guys?
Next man up mentality, right? Whoever's can or cannot go, willing and able, right? Next man up. And obviously, we've been fortunate to see what the running backs, that stepped up and have done a nice job where needed. And then same with the wide receiver. If you told me on the final drive versus Navy for the chance to win it, we'd have a 17-year-old freshman Brady Cluse out there catching a couple balls. I'd say, well, what about the rest of the cats? But you've got great faith in him. And he's a guy that came, graduated high school early, who's mature, who gets it. Jair Shorter had some good catches. So, look, whoever it is, it doesn't matter the position, right? Wide receivers, O-line, defensive backs, right, next man up mentality. And that's our job as coaches, as all throughout the week, to make sure they're prepared. Because I always tell them, guys, you're a shoestring away from going in. And sure enough, those guys had to step up in a big-time environment. And they did some nice things. But, again, like for all of us, room for improvement.
How important was it to see Brandon Thomas revert back to the old Brandon Thomas, especially with knowing that Greg DeRosier is going to be out?
Yeah, look, Brandon and I have had a very close relationship and been very fortunate to have known the young man through, since high school and the recruitment process. And, he obviously, everybody always go back to, don't ever forget about Brandon Thomas, because he's a special talent and a great young man. Maybe his college career hasn't always gone the way he's wanted, and he'll be the first to admit it. Hey, some really good things the second year, and then kind of some maybe he didn't show up on film like we'd all hope, but he's always played a significant role and always been a great part of this team. And I think just the belief in himself and our belief in him and maintaining that relationship has allowed that young man to step up when called for. Because he would have just said, okay, am I going to be the short yardage and goal line back and be a four-phase special teamer? Coach, you got everything I got. What do I need to do? But then we sat down with him and said, Brandon, we're going to need you to step up. Okay, great. And sure enough, that light went on, and he did a phenomenal job. But again, same type of young man that would sit there and say, hey, Coach, I could have done better. We didn't win the football game, so there's certainly room for improvement. But quite pleased with his effort. I think he did a lot of good things. We've got to continue to shore up some other stuff. But pleased with Brandon Thomas. I know he's excited to whatever role he's asked to do to continue to push forward.
You guys had some guys, banged up at different positions. And before the season, you talked about the depth of this roster. Just how important is that coming into play with?
Yeah, I was hoping we weren't challenging the depth going into week 4, but that's the nature of this thing, right? It's every year has its own situations. I'm not going to call them issues, right? Opportunities. Let's be positive here, right? Glass half full. So every season's presented different opportunities, and this one has presented some guys that are a little chipped up early in the season, and but that depth is going to be key. It's going to be key not only last week, this week, and then throughout the season moving forward. And hopefully, we want to take care of our guys and stay healthy. But we know injuries and things of that nature are part of college football. So the depth's important, but just as important, Frank, is we got to continue to pull those guys up. I mean, there's guys that are on scout teams that, sure enough, will end up playing it later in the year. So we got to pour into every single person on this roster.
Ryan, what's the message as far as it's easy for a coach to look at it day by day, game by game? For the players in the locker room are looking at your long-term big picture goals and saying, we might be perfect from here on out. We might not have another bowl game. So keeping them focused on what's here and now instead of getting caught up in that stuff.
Yeah, Matt, that's a challenge I think every college coach deals with. You hear, and again, I'm off social, but like when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, the coach said, I think our guys started looking too far ahead or were thinking about the big picture. And I've had people ask me about, what about Liberty and Boise? I don't care. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is control. And so generally the message you guys hear from me is the same message I'm sharing with our guys. And I want those guys to hear that message and actually, and what I appreciate about our guys, I think they bought into it and believe it. Now, do I have 100% buy-in? No, nobody in the country does, right? I mean, no corporation, I say all the time, right? Fred Smith is the best CEO in the world. I don't know if there's 100% buy-in at FedEx, maybe every employee but two of them, right? And we'll figure out those two, right? Or whether it's Nike, right? Like there's certain organizations, and we're no different. But I believe we got the buy-in. So, Matt, I'm constantly just preaching, hey, guys, this is what's in front of us. This is what we have to take care of. And the blinders approach and one day at a time. And I think just hearing our guys talk, when I start to hear them talking, it sounds like me, I'm like, oh, this is a good thing, right? And I want them to all be their own unique individuals. But the buy-in, I believe, is there. And you guys have seen, we got this mantra, all in, right? And I think that part of that thing is just focusing on the now, right? That we talk about that N, and all in stands for now, just focusing on the right now. And that's all we can do. That's all we can handle. We can't go out there and worry about future conference opponents. Literally the best thing we can do right now is find a way to prepare to the best of our ability for Saturday. And so we can go out there and hopefully get on the back in the win column.
Coach, what was your take on the Kobe Drake catch, no catch in the end zone?
Yeah, the officials in our conference do a nice job, and it's their job to make the right call. It also went to replay. I have my feelings on whether it was a catch or not, but it doesn't matter. My thoughts or feelings on that stuff. It doesn't. They get paid money to make the decision. They made the decision, and we're going to stick with it and live with it. I always say, if we had performed a little bit better, we shouldn't have put ourselves in that situation. So, over the years, like there's just like people can question my play calling. We could question some of that stuff, but it neither here nor there. Kobe made a fantastic effort. He had a fantastic game. Unfortunately, they called it an incompletion after review, and we live with that result and go out there and find a way to execute and try to finish the game.
Ryan, is there a time limit? The one replay, not that one, but another replay, you guys are driving, and the shorter catch, that was the longest I think it took for any decision. It seems like they're fishing to try to find something, and it's not there apparently. Is there a limit? Are you told anything about these long replays? Because first of all, you're moving down the field, and now you have to wait and get
Yeah, great. That's a great question. Generally, I feel pretty caught up on the rules. At one point, I thought there was a time limit on how long you had on replay. Now, maybe I'm getting confused with an NFL rule or something. But again, I don't know if there's, hey, it's 3 minutes and the buzzer goes off. I think they're going to do what it takes to find the right evidence, good or bad. And then a lot of it goes back to, okay, how much time was on the clock, where was the ball, all those things. But, we certainly had quite a few replays at the end of that game, for better or for worse, and I think most of them didn't turn out in our favor. But again, that's our job to not put ourselves in those situations. But that's a unique thing. I'm going to actually have to go out and find and look through the rule book if there's a time limit on deal. But I'm sure if I'm sitting there hollering, hey, it's been 3 minutes, great. It'd be like piss in the wind. No one will be listening to me.
Clarification on the Kobe Drake. Feet are in, right? I mean, that's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
It's control as he goes out of bounds?
Yeah, they said that he didn't maintain full control of the ball through the catch. So, we could argue till we're blue in the face and look at a million different examples. At the end of the day, they judged and ruled and overturned. They said there's substantial evidence that it wasn't a catch. So that's what they decided, and so we live with it and understand we had to go out there and still gave ourselves an opportunity to win the football game, and we didn't.
Obviously, you're thinking about football. In the background the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk about conference realignment with Pac-12. Tim Brady was here last week at the radio show, obviously. Can you talk to Ed about this? Are you involved in those kind of discussions, or you kind of tell him like that?
Yeah, so I do live in a bubble, and but I am well aware of those discussions that occur. A lot of those things at this point, right, are out of my discussion range. Really, I've told from the president to the board to the athletic director, like, man, my job is to get our guys ready for the season and week at a time. But what I do appreciate about our athletic director, we've had a great relationship. We've been very transparent with one another. We do have some conversations on things, but at the end of the day, my focus has to be what's occurring in this building, and whatever happens with that stuff, all aboard and let's go.
Coach, talk to me about Jacoby Banks, the decision to give him snaps at running back. He only had one carry on Saturday, but could we see a bigger role for him going forward? What have you seen from him?
Yeah, well, obviously we are down, we're down 2 players currently, at the running back. We know Sutton's done for the year. I do believe at some point we'll get Greg back. But Jacoby Banks was played some running back in high school, played a high school quarterback, and we know he's a talented athlete, and so you can never have enough running backs. It's it's one of those unique things that you sit there and say, well, you got a loaded room. Man, gosh, I maybe wish we had a couple more. So Jacoby's one of those. He'd gotten a few snaps at wide receiver, but I think it also gives you a unique situation. If he's out on the field, is he going to line up as a wide receiver? Is he going to line up in the backfield? When I'm not comparing him to Antonio Gibson, and no offense to Jacoby Banks, but when Antonio Gibson got here, Antonio came here as a wide receiver. In fact, Antonio Gibson, as a true junior, only played in 7 games, I believe. He didn't start. Antonio Gibson, I think, only started 6 games his entire Memphis career. I always say we all missed on Antonio. We had no idea how good he was. I'm not saying that's what Jacoby Banks is, but we're taking wide receiver and using a skill set and seeing if he's capable of playing in the backfield. If he continues to improve, then he'll have more opportunities on the field. But I do think he gives you a unique skill set, right? We were able to line up Sutton Smith in different parts of the field. Kenny Gainwell, maybe we'll go out there and line up 2 guys in the backfield, and you're not sure, is he going to go to wide receiver? Is he going to take the ball? Is he going to throw the ball? So different dynamic with what he can bring, and we're going to need him to continue to improve.
Didn't you guys toy with the idea of making Gibson a tight end?
Yeah, look, he's a 228-pound guy, right? Sean Dykes was our tight end that year, and he weighed 214 pounds, and Joey Magnifico was like 223 soaking wet. So, and all of a sudden you have this 228-pound guy that you sit there and say, is he a tight end? What is he? What ultimately end up with AG? I always go back and tell the story. He probably wouldn't be who he was if Pastor Taylor didn't break his foot versus Ole Miss. And we all, as coaches, we all think we're gurus, but we all missed, right? Just like if we were all gurus, Tom Brady would have been drafted in the first round, and Antonio Gibson would have redshirted his junior year, so we could have had 2 more years out of him, and we would have moved to running back. But needless to say, so I think that's part of the unique things of college football. One of the things it is, without getting off topic, is people had asked about this transfer portal thing. You guys hear me talk often about like a guy like Dylan Parham, right? Dylan Parham came here as a defensive lineman, a tight end, then moved to defensive line. Well, I think if you took a tight end out of high school and said, we're moving you to D-line, he's probably in the transfer portal. Oh, and by the way, now we're taking you from D-line, moving you to O-line. There's certainly a transfer portal because no one wants to go hang out with the guys in the trenches, on the other side. But I wonder, if moving forward, how much we're going to see of guys transitioning positions, right? J.J. Watt went from tight end to D-line, guys like that. So I kind of got off tangent with the Jacoby Banks deal, but how much of that flipping of positions is going to occur moving forward, which has been significant for some guys in this sport.
Defensively, is it easier to move forward with confidence given how well they played the first 3 games and how unique the Navy offense was compared to what you're going to see the rest of the year?
I think so. And so I sat down with the staff, and sometimes the message to the players is the same message I gotta give the staff. Right? It's my job to lead all 200 people, not just the 125 players. And so when talking to the staff, and Coach Hankins has done a phenomenal job. His group has done a great job. And what I said is, listen, we got our teeth kicked in Saturday. Let's call it what it is. And blame me. I promise. Blame me. I don't care. Unless Devin Walker sends me a tweet, I don't read any of y'all's stuff. So, anyways, all that being said is, what I told Coach Hankins and I told the defense, I said, don't lose your edge, right? Don't lose because I think that what we saw from the defense the first 3 weeks is a great sense of pride. And we're always about the team, right? You're always unique about positions and all those things. But I think for the first time in a long time, we saw a lot of pride in our defense, right? They've been using this term dark side, and this coming together that believed in themselves, and guys with the confidence. And so what you don't want is one game to totally take the wind out of yourselves and say, man, we can't play defense anymore. We can, and we will, and we're certainly capable of. And you got guys like Chandler Martin, those leaders on the defense, Clemente Hamilton, Greg Rubin, guys that saying, look, we know we're good at defense. Man, the only way we can prove is by going out on the field on another Saturday and showing. So we're humbled, certainly, and I'm not saying we're overconfident, but now we still need to have our edge about ourselves and our confidence and a sense of pride. But you do that by preparing the right way, and so you can go out there Saturday and put your best foot forward.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all.